Freedom's the answer. What's the question? You're listening to Ernest Hancock.
That's the sound of the police. That's the sound of the beast. That's the sound of the police.
Yeah, that's the sound of the police. Yeah, that's that's what Terry was faced with as he pulls up to an unconstitutional roadblock. And it was important that you understand the mindset of someone like Terry that understood what was happening. And what do? You let it happen? I mean, if you know the beginnings of 1984, the book, or Brave New World, or whatever dystopian science fiction that you like, and you know where this goes, you know what the end of the book is, what role do you play? What side do you take? What action do you perform? I mean, this is, all of us got to make decisions. Wow. When you're one of the first ones, and they don't like it none too much, I mean, you get extra stripes as far as I'm concerned. So, Terry, let's go ahead and get back to, well, on the ID thing. I mean, now I'm sure that the University of Arizona, everybody's just signing whatever and giving away their Facebook account or whatever, I would imagine, right?
Well, I haven't done much auditing since then to see how the policies, procedures have changed and how many people opt out of all these features associated with the CAT card. But I went to an awful lot of effort to make sure those options were available. And from what I can tell by just briefly looking over the page right now, the CAT card office, a lot of those options are still plainly available for the CAT card. But my guess is that most people coming into college, they have no clue that, what the concerns are. They just, blissfully in ignorance go ahead and just sign up for all these options thinking, geez, this is just great. Look at how convenient it is for me without really understanding the repercussions associated with allowing so much information about
I accept. Check the box. I accept on everything I download. Did you do a South Park episode about that? Okay, now let's go ahead and get back to the checkpoint. Now, you had challenged this. The Indian Reservation Police, they said, yeah, okay, we're going to file it. So they filed it. Well, there's kind of jurisdictional problems going on, which has been throughout this whole thing. They get the district county attorney, district attorney, what kind of attorneys?
The county prosecuting attorney.
Okay, the county prosecutor. He's doing this because why? Somebody is encouraging him. Let me put it this way. I guarantee you there wasn't a government agency that was discouraging him. They needed to get this taken. Go, heck no. We're not going to let Terry. We did a little research on Terry Bressi. He's a troublemaker from back when. He's one of them. Oh, my goodness. We go through millions of people to try to avoid Terry's, okay? Well, here's Terry in their face, so they got to make an example out of you. They want to play. And that's one thing, the mistake that the government always makes is they take on the wrong battle with the wrong people, and it just exposes it. And it's easy, and I always give this example, it's easy to, show the weaknesses and how you can slap upside the head, the government agents. And the government, it's like playing chess with a 3-year-old. But at one point, the 3-year-old gets all frustrated, knocks all the pieces on the floor, pulls out his .45 and pumps 3 in your chest, okay? So you're always up against that. Now, they tried, I want to get this in, too, they tried to get you fired, okay? They were like, oh, heck, man, he works for a government-funded kind of whatever. We want that boy gone. There are all kinds of stuff that we were keeping track of on Freedom's Phoenix and your site you're doing and so on. This was amazing, the effort. Now, I want to get to that. The prosecuting attorney says, okay, we're taking this case on. Here we go. What happened then?
So we showed up in the pretrial court hearing. Mark Victor had subpoenaed required checkpoint guidelines and policies, procedures, that sort of thing from the tribal police. And the tribal police showed up and told the prosecuting attorney and the judge, and said, look, we work for a sovereign entity. Native American tribes are sovereign entities, and they said, we don't have to abide by your subpoena, and we're not going to provide copies of our checkpoint guidelines. Okay. Now think about this for a second. Okay. They had charged me with violations of state law. Okay. Stopped me absent any suspicion along a state highway. The state highway was running through the reservation, but it was still an easement granted to the state for this state highway. They stopped me under color of state law, using their Arizona Post certifications to enforce state law, charged me with violations of state law, then walked into a state court and said, we don't have to listen to your or abide by your subpoenas. because it's inconvenient for us, we're not going to provide you with the subpoena documentation. If I did that, I'd still be sitting in a jail cell, okay? But they showed up. That's exactly what they did. And we found out later, we didn't know at the time, but I suspected, we found out later that the reason why they did that was because they didn't have checkpoint guidelines, okay? So if they had to admit that they didn't have checkpoint guidelines, then it would have been very clear up front that the whole operation was illegal.
Okay, now that's because of a Supreme Court ruling that said to make these legal, you have to have a checkpoint guideline that's going to blah, 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 right?
Yeah, right. Right. You know, the whole idea is that, you know, there's a Fourth Amendment, right? The right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. There's supposed to be probable cause and a warrant signed by a judge before an agent of the state can get in your face and demand things from you. Well, that's not the way it works anymore. You know, the Supreme Court over the year has backed down on those protections and said, well, we considered it reasonable to stop people at suspicionless checkpoints, but the checkpoints have to be conducted in such a way that's supposed to limit on-scene discretion and be very narrow in scope. So they say that a sobriety checkpoint is okay if it's limited to sobriety because it's attempting to find drunk drivers who represent an immediate danger to other members of the public at that time. So the primary purpose isn't general law enforcement. It's to remove dangerous drivers from the road to protect the public. And so the court has created these narrow Fourth Amendment exceptions for very specific things. Sobriety checkpoint is one of them. The immigration checkpoint is another. And those are the only two types of suspicionless checkpoints that the Supreme Court has ever authorized. And they've gone further, and they said that if you conduct a checkpoint and it's not limited in scope to a public safety matter and it's conducted for general law enforcement purposes or to interdict drugs, then those checkpoints are prima facie illegal, unconstitutional, cannot be done, okay? So if you look at how checkpoints have proliferated, you always hear the catchwords being used to try to justify them, that, oh, they're being done for public safety, they're being done to save the children from drunk drivers and to do these things, when in reality they're using them as nothing more than general law enforcement dragnet operations, hiding behind the mask that the Supreme Court has created for them to conduct these operations under color of law.
Okay, so you're making this point. You're doing it well. They decide they're going to come after you. And what was your first course of action? You're going, okay, well, no, we need to get it. We're going to get this dismissed. Did it ever go to trial? Did eventually they dismiss them?
Nope. During that court appearance, when the cops showed up and said, we're not going to obey your subpoena and we're not going to provide you with this documentation, Mark Victor requested that the court dismiss the charges with prejudice and sanction the police officers for their gross misuse of the legal process to harass and intimidate me. So the judge agreed to dismiss the charges with prejudice, but he refused to sanction the police officers. So once again, you know, something that if I had done, I'd be sitting in a jail cell, but because it was done by, you know, the King's men, they were given a free pass. And
it's hard to even know which King's men they were being on the reservation. I mean, it just gets so muddy. And there was also a point to where they were avoiding the subpoena. They were doing. I mean, it was all kinds of cat and mouse stuff going on. When we come back, we'll get to the civil suit that went to the Ninth Circuit. There's a ruling sitting out there. Did you know about it? Oh, we're going to talk about it when we come back with Terry Bressi here on Declare Your Independence in just a little bit.